diet. But the question was really asked in relation to this, why aren't foods that God has condemned and God has actually called unclean, if we should put them into our mouths, why doesn't that defile us? And I thought, well, that was an interesting question, right? You have somebody who's thinking there, because we know in the Old Testament, God has said a number of things that are not, good for us. But we also said in the New Testament that the things that he once upon a time declared unclean is now clean, right? So how do people manage through all that type of stuff? Because we have a lot of people who just think food-wise and that it actually has an effect on us. So what do you think?
It's the way you were raised, probably. You continue the same foods.
Yeah, there are people who are raised in certain realms, right? And when you're raised in certain realms, you come away with certain beliefs, right or wrong. Some people who are raised a certain way, they don't understand a lot of the things that they're raised with and what they're actually taught. And so some things that people are taught really don't have good biblical balance nor an understanding at all. But when we just read sections like what we just read in Matthew, what is the issue for Jesus? Because he says, don't you understand? What is he getting at?
Spiritual.
It's spiritual, but it's always a heart issue. It's always a heart issue. So even though God had ordained some foods as unclean, food in and of itself simply enters the mouth, goes into the stomach and in the intestines, and comes out as human waste after it nourishes our bodies. Now, while food nourishes our hearts, it does not defile it. So, however, whatever comes out of the mouth begins in the heart. So what's coming out of the mouth comes from the heart. And one's speech shows what?
What's in your heart?
Yeah, a quality, a certain kind of quality of our inner self. And sometimes with utmost clarity, it's very revealing, right? With utmost clarity, it's really revealing. And I was talking to, I think, Trace the other day, yesterday maybe, and I was saying, you don't know people, and this is something my dad told me a long time. Now, my dad didn't give me too many words of wisdom, but he did tell me this one. You don't know somebody till you cross them.
That's true.
You just don't know them until you cross them. Now, everybody's fine, as long as they're doing what you like, but just cross them. And Lisa and I were walking down, to the festivities in South Lyon. They had their pumpkin festival or whatever they call that, and they have all kind of activities, and they're selling all kind of different things. Well, we were walking by in the street, and there was a guy across the street from us, and he was swearing up a storm because something wasn't happening right with the pump, that he was at the gas station trying to get fuel. So whether the attendant wasn't doing what he needed to do or whatever, but the guy was just swearing up a storm. And you find that there's a lot of people on the road that are angry, and sometimes they're violent people.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. So have you ever accidentally pulled in front of somebody?
Yep.
Yeah.
And don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact with them.
And I can honestly say I try to be a good driver. But there are times where I've made bad decisions. Haven't you? Has anybody here made a bad decision driving?
Yes.
Man, everybody makes a bad decision driving. But nobody seems to have courtesy, kindness, patience, or whatever is needed for somebody who makes a bad judgment. And everybody makes a bad judgment. But like I said, when you cross somebody, just cross somebody, you will find out what's in their hearts. You'll really find out a great deal. And so this is the whole issue with Jesus. He's saying, well, one speech shows the quality of the inner person. Well, sometimes, as I said, with utmost clarity, it shows what's in there. For it has to do with one's whole course of thinking. Take a look at Proverbs 4:23. Proverbs 4:23. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life. That's kind of an interesting proverb, don't you think? A great deal of wisdom in this particular proverb. And the issue always, always, always seems to be with the Lord. Sometimes it's not so much what you're doing, it's why you're doing it and what's the motivation behind it and all those type of issues. So the issue is the seat of the heart. It's the seat of selfishness or moral perversions are those things that defile, not food that God has blessed us with. And so in certain communities, even in, whether you go to the Old Testament or whether you go to the New Testament or you go into the present day, people make issues of all kinds of different things, right? And we have all kinds of things within Christendom that divide us into little pieces. They just really do. Whether this one believes this or this believes that or this believes this and this has this emphasis or that emphasis. We have so many different divisions, but the issue normally with all this type of stuff that's around in Christendom is what's going on in here. So I might disagree with this or that or this or that, but really how I convey what I have in my heart is important to the Lord, even though I might disagree, or I might take issue with, or I might find to be, this is really wrong. And there's a lot of things that are going on in Christendom under the name of Christ that are foolish, right? Silly, out of balance. The world looks at it and scratches their head and say, these people are off their rockers, right? And what do? Sometimes we just say the same identical things. And, I just think there's times where it'd be wise for us just to think about what we're going to say before we say it. And I'm not good at that. A lot of people aren't very good at that.
It helps me to remember the passage that Jesus told his disciples, their eyes are blinded. They can't see until God opens their understanding.
Yeah. And that's a good thing to think about, because there are some people that are just plain blind. But there's some good things that can come out of our hearts. They really can. And one of the things that should come out of our hearts is our speech. And that should be salted and flavored, and however you want to look at it, with grace, right? So our speech should have some things that should actually have the right kind of flavor to it. And that's kind of a good thing for us to think about. And what do you do when you find something bad coming out of your heart? I think that's the right thing to do. Yeah, confess, right? Now, and be on guard, because it's there. I have some things that are just there, and there are times where I have to just be on guard to not say some of the things that I know are in there,
Yeah.
and to see that I have the right kind of flavoring that comes out of my mouth. Okay, so that would finish up, the things we're dealing with, the parable and dealing with the heart. So let's just put that one away. We finally got to the end of that one. And let's go to our new study. So if you don't have a study sheet, like I